The data that we get in response of sending a request is nothing but some HTML code. So you see in the lowest tab, these are all the real bits of a packet. In the second tab, these are a more human-friendly format, and in a browser, when we right-click in here and say view page source, these are the HTML code, and in here that you see, these are the best and human readable form, which is actually the translation of the HTML code by the browser. So all of these data are the same. The only difference is the program that we are processing this data with. If it is a browser, then we see all the images and text in a best format that we could understand. If we use other things, we may see the HTML format, or we could just see the real bits in here that are hard to process by our mind. Now you may say, how is it that using the Wireshark, it says that the server has moved permanently, while using the browser I have asked for the same address and we get all these responses? This is just one of the packets in the Wireshark that we have analyzed, but in the real world in the browser, actually what is going on is that after the server has responded back to the browser saying that it has moved permanently, it has provided the correct information or new location for the program to be able to send the request to, which is https www.kali.org. So the browser would send data to that address. As you see, it says https www.kali.org, and then it gets all the related information, all the HTML codes, which it could translate to make sense of this data and show them to us. So again, in here, if we go to the http://kali.org, just pay attention to how this changes. If we hit enter, you see it spontaneously goes to HTTPS. By default, when we say kali.org in here, even though we haven't provided any port number, the default port number that the browser sends this data to is port number 80. So if we don't provide any information in here, by default it would work with HTTP and port number 80. And when we provide HTTPS, by default it works with the port number 443. In any other port number of a distant location or server that we want to send our data to any other port number, we should specify that port number. For example, let's say that we want to send some data to port number 53. In this case, we should specify the port number of 53 in here. So again, in here, when we say HTTP, then kali.org, it sends all the data to port number 80. It is as if we have said 80 in here. So when we hit enter, this data would be sent to kali.org and port number 80, which Apache is listening to. Then the Apache says that the address has been changed to HTTPS port number 443, and it tells the browser, if you want the corresponding and correct information, send the information and data and your request to port number 443 instead of port number 80. So you see, when we hit enter in here, we see HTTPS and we get all this data. So you see, a lot of different packets is going back and forth in the background, but the program in here, the browser in here, is taking care of everything to facilitate our work. But we know that using the Wireshark, we understood that there are actually a lot of things going behind the scene that we don't see because the browser is facilitating our work. The problem with HTTP is that everything is in the plain text. Another person in between could just simply read all the data that we are sending or receiving. For example, let's say that we want to send some data to some website which works with HTTP. So in here, we start capturing packets again. and we send some data for a website, let's say for example washington.edu, which works with HTTP. So for HTTP, you see in here, it says it's not secure, the connection not secure, and the port number is 80. So in here, you see these are all the packets that have been going back and forth. We stop the capture. If we look again, a request has been sent using the same method, get / HTTP 1.1, and then we get the corresponding response. If we look at the corresponding response in the different packets in here, we could see that these are just HTML codes. So again, let me just get to this packet, for example, or if we just right click in here and say follow HTTP stream, these are all the data that has been sent to us as the response. You see these are all the HTML and CSS codes in here, which in the next lectures and modules we are going to completely talk about all of these codes so that you could understand them. But the browser is a program which would translate all of these codes in here to show us everything that you see in here, images, texts, colors, to a more human readable form.